Hello viewers and welcome back to our pre-release coverage of Dominion's 4 Thrones of Ascension. So today, well, we don't really have any major gameplay mechanics to really cover now, so I think I'll do, just one or two videos about smaller things. Today we will be checking out essentially sacred units and the blessings that go along with them, and maybe later on we'll be checking out blood magic, which is, well, it's semi-self-explanatory is how I describe it. So today we're going to be checking out the faction Marjon, which is a zealous religious faction. It's kind of based upon just having a system of having a lot of priests and a lot of mages, focusing on a little bit of heavy infantry and a little bit of fire magic here and there. So, with that said, let's just begin starting this and really going through it. Okay, so you may have noticed here in the design panel that there's always this little thing below the magic paths, and it essentially just says blessed effects +1 morale, and that is essentially what we're going to be focusing on. If your demigod is particularly focused in one path in magic, you can actually gain a few specialty benefits for your blessed effects. As you can see here, if I crank the fire magic all the way up to 9, we'll actually be gaining flaming weapons, and what I'm going to be doing is that I'm actually going to be going for fire magic and blood magic right now, just for the sake of getting these benefits. As you can see here, they are pretty strong. We get quite a lot of attack power like this, and if we actually take away from the blood magic and say put that into earth, then we get a entirely different set of protections. But this faction is capable of really pushing out a ton of really rather strong units, and they are actually fairly cheap too, provided that we have a nice little build here set up for what is essentially using our sacred units, blessing them with attacks, and really driving them through into our enemies' ranks. So we're going to be doing that. I'm just going to make a few changes here. First and foremost, by lowering the amount of Thrones of Ascensions needed to win, and changing the strength of the independents down. Like, to me, I feel like inside this game, one of the things about the independents, as you may know, they are just essentially the guardians of the map at the beginning of the game to make you kind of whittle your way through them, limiting your expansion early game, which is fine. If you start off near the edges of the map, or like somewhere where your capital only borders like 2 or 3 provinces very easily, then you do have a chance of like getting a ton of independence in those 3 provinces. Like, you have a stack of 80, and then it's just like, oh well, I guess I had to sit here and build a few units for a few turns. So to just kind of solve that problem, I've decided to drop that value a little bit, because now that they've added the Thrones of Ascension and there are like little cities on maps and stuff and such like that, yeah, the amount of independence that you have in one area can really be a lot to handle, especially with this faction, because they are a little more focused on handling they're more focused on handling enemies when they are already established. So let's go to the recruitment screen and let's check out what we have. As this faction, you do have your basic set of scout and assassin and general commander in the form of the paladin. The paladin is sacred, which we will be using to essentially cast blessings on our units, and that's essentially one of the major things about this faction. One of the unique commanders is the troubadour over here, which is essentially the scout, although he has the ability to seduce enemy commanders, which is pretty helpful. He's actually able to convert them to our faction. The other thing that we have is essentially 2 different types of priests slash mages. We have the High Inquisitor, which is more or less the priest. I mean, they have a very high priest level, a little bit of magic, but not very much. They come in 3 different types, 3 different tiers, sorry. And you have the Witch Hunters, which are a little bit better for research and a little better for magical casting, but they definitely have less priest power. So what I've done here is that I've essentially put all of our points into gaining a lot of Dominion strength inside our places, and a lot of points inside our demigods' skills. Now, you may have noticed that we did set our demigod on in prison, so he's actually not going to be on the field for a very, very long time. But if we take a look at the units that we get here, most of the generic infantrymen, such as these Hellebudiers and these Pikeneers, they cost over 20 resources to actually put onto the field, and with that being said, they're almost as expensive as the Byssian troops, but they're obviously not as great. They certainly don't have the fire benefit, and their stats are just kind of meager in general. So, what we will be doing is that we'll actually be building quite a lot of these guys called Flagelants, and these are essentially sacred units. If they have this little sacred icon, they can essentially be blessed by our priests, and then we can devote some of those blessings onto them. And because we've chosen quite a lot of high-level blessings, we are essentially able to just amass these guys and really pump out an army every few turns. So with that being kept in mind, what we're going to do here is that we are essentially just going to end the turn. No, there we go. Looks like we got a good spawn this time. There's not that many people surrounding our provinces, which is rather nice. So what we can do now is we can take a look at the army setup and take a look at these guys. They generally start off pretty weak in the sense that they don't have really many hit points and they have 0 protection, so whatever hits them does whatever damage that it normally does, making them very vulnerable in the battle. However, depending on how you've set up your blessings, you can actually make them quite strong. What I'm going to do here is that I think I'll go back into recruit units, and we will be recruiting a High Inquisitor now. And I'll just get the initial troop line up here to go with this commander right. Actually, no. We're going to get our troops set up under the Witch Hunter, and essentially how this is going to go is that these guys will all go to one province and essentially just force them onto that little group of troops right there. So about 9 units over there. And we are essentially just going to order the Witch Hunter to cast one specific spell, which is Blessing, and this will instill some benefits on the troops. So now that that is that, we're not going to give them any formation orders, just simply because. And that should start off the battle, and we should win it because I did lower the strength of those independents. So we have our little ball of troops here. We're going to start blessing our units. In general, our guys would just kind of be doing whatever, but the main focus here is on the Flagelants. Now that they have been buffed, they still have 0 protection. You can actually change that if you specialize in Earth Magic, it'll give them 5 protection. But the main thing that we're trying to do is that we're trying to increase their attack skill. So as you can see here, they've been blessed, they have +4 attack skill, and they've also been blessed in strength, so +4 strength, making them quite heavy in the damage category, especially with their flaming weapons too. The other thing that I should note is that because these guys are essentially really cheap meat bag troops, I've given them Blood Vengeance, which is essentially like a type of magical damage reflection, where even if this unit is, like, if somebody tries to kill this unit, the person dealing the damage will take some damage as he deals it. So it's kind of useful in that you just swarm the enemy with these guys, and then even if the enemy has some heavy troops, they're going to mow them down, but they're going to take a lot of damage by themselves too. So I think that gets rid of them, yeah, just like that. The bad thing about this faction is that in the start of the game, you really have to just kind of push forward with mercenaries and whatnot, because in the early phase right here, you just really don't have enough of those guys to really move out very far. The faction does have a lot of these flagrant guys, but the main thing is the Knights of Chalice, which are the second version of the initial sacred unit that is available, and those guys really dish out damage as soon as you get them essentially ready. So we should win another battle, yeah, and as we win these battles, you may have noticed that I've been just kind of building temples wherever we go, provided that we do have the cash for it, and the reason because our troops do require a lot of these holy points to just kind of spend, what we need to do is we need to bounce our guys around, and we need to go wherever and recruit a lot of these guys. Now you may have noticed that I didn't really talk about the holy points system inside the other videos, and that's simply because Some factions I think use this a lot more than other ones. For example, here, because we've picked a faction with a high Dominion stat, we are essentially just going to set up a little bit of a rally where our High Inquisitor, now that we have him, is essentially going to cast Divine Blessing, which will affect the entire battlefield, so he'll bless everybody who is blessable on the battlefield, and then I think he'll just smite a few people a few times, and what he's going to do is essentially lead these guys to victory by using those buffs that we can instill on people. With that said, I'm going to get him to come over here, and they are going to go down to this province and conquer that. And we need one guy to just essentially stay back. Little over here, we'll just go through the provinces and he'll gather the troops for us. Because unlike the other factions that we've taken a look at, this faction, you do need to set up your little troop trains early game. So what I mean by that is that we'll need a few commanders essentially going through our provinces and collecting the troops as they form up. So yeah, we should have won that battle. It's our troops actually underneath the command of these High Inquisitors, they actually get a benefit. They get +2 morale, so that's actually really helpful too. With that said, we will just kind of continue driving forward. I think we'll get a few guys in the back to research here. For research, we're just mainly going to be pouring our points into whatnot. This is going to be a demonstration, so it really doesn't matter. You could actually use some of these initiates to do your research. They only cost 45 gold a piece, so they're fairly cheap for this faction, so you can essentially stack them up. They're not necessarily the best units for the majority of things, but they are really good at just kind of passive research. Let's see, they have some war elephants inside this town, which is something that I'm a little worried about because those guys are pretty tough, so I think I'll come over here. Later on, once we have enough of those flagrant guys, taking down those elephants won't be much of a problem, simply because, well, like, as they trample our little religious guys, they'll actually be doing damage to themselves due to the little buff that they instill on them, right? So there's kind of that going on too. And I have a feeling we'll have enough places to start really cranking these guys out now, so yeah, that'll essentially just do that. I think I'll get this guy actually to do another little chain here, so you know, just essentially picking up these guys, bringing them to the front, and really going in there. So I have a feeling we'll have enough of these guys to take on these heavy war elephants, so this will be rather cool to see. Let's see what has happened. Yeah, we conquered them. We actually barely took any losses. We only took 8 losses. So let's see what happened in this battle. So it'll essentially be these blessed units versus these heavy elephants. Now these guys, they have a trample ability. The elephants have trample, so they'll actually be able to charge through our ranks and essentially crush people to death. Because of that, we can essentially use our flagelants here as pretty much like suicide units, where as they are trampled, they should be doing damage to the elephants. Yeah, those ranged attacks really kill us off, but it looks like we were actually able to rout the elephants. Oh my. So yeah, I mean, with those divine benefits, even though we don't have our demigod available at the very start of the game, you'll see that it's pretty lethal. I mean, provided that the enemy doesn't bring in a lot of those, what do you call them? A lot of those ranged units, but apart from that, I mean, they are pretty damn lethal. So that'll essentially move us forward. I think I'll actually build another. Temple here, and you really have to stack up the temples simply because you really do need to generate a lot of those troops. But inside our capital, what I'm going to start building is some of these Knights of Chalice. Unfortunately, it looks like we can only build 2 of them at a time, but they are also sacred units, so we should also be able to use them in the same way by blessing them. And these guys have decent protection, and they already have decent combat skills, so with their blesses, they should be really able to drive right on into the enemy's lines really easily. And so that's kind of that. Get our second in command here to pick up another stack of these troops, and that'll just essentially be brought to the front while we continue moving forward. What else can we do here to just kind of make things a little better? How much do these initiates cost in resources? They only cost in 1 they only need 1 resource, so I think I'll just leave them as it is. And yeah, so let's see. Yeah, there's going to be a few random events happening over time, which is fine. And in the meantime, we should be really getting the little ball of troops going on now. So our guys will just form up like that. These guys are going to construct another temple. So as you can see here, our expansion is not that fast, but I mean, as soon as you have the early game conquered, you can really start pushing up by using this type of ball technique of just essentially spamming these really high-powered units. And they're actually dirt cheap too, because I believe the only thing that you do have to pay some sort of maintenance for these sacred units, but they generally only cost half of the original amount to maintain, so they're a little cheaper than what is necessary for regular units. So I think that's all we really have to cover for blessed units. I mean, we could in theory just win this game, but I don't think that's gonna be it, because we do need to wait for our demigod to get here, and that's going to take like another, I would say like 5 to 10 turns. So I'll see you guys later on, where we either start our let's play, take a look at some of the new factions, or take a look at blood magic. Be sure to subscribe and like the video and comment, of course. Until then, bye bye.